have invented like new. How many patents do you have? I'm kind of
well. I've got the one patent, patent on the carbon compact, and I've got a couple other patent pendings on some other stuff that hasn't really hit yet.
So let's talk about the carbon compact, because this is like your kind of your tech that you created, you've patented, and it's like kind of taken off. Like it seems like you're able to license that tech to other shapers.
Right.
How did that design come about, and how is it different than the Pope bisect?
So I had the idea years ago of which a lot of people keep emailing us about. Why don't you have the tail removable and the nose removable, and then you could have a fishtail and a pointy nose and blah blah blah. And that was the original concept, right? But that's a really hard thing to do, because everyone would need to have what 6 pieces of boards to put them all together and getting everything to line up. So I saw the Pope bisect, and Pope did a really good job for the time and the era and the materials that he had, right? He was an engineer ahead of his time. So what I kept asking people when they had him, what are the problems? And I looked online. The first thing was the little clasps that he had would break apart. Yeah. And people were trying to buy those clasps, those like tackle box snaps, right? The next thing was he had a plastic tube, and he only had one in the middle. The other thing was the interface materials were plastic PVC, and they'd come apart. So I looked at it. It was like 2009 when my son was just born. I was like at home a lot, a lot of walking around with the stroller around town. I just kept thinking. But I thought, first off, I said, why do we not have two rods in this thing? Why is there only one? That's going to torque and tweak on that one section and bend. Then when the carbon fiber paddles happened, and I kept we're making our own carbon fiber blades, the telescoping of the carbon fiber tubes, the tolerances were so perfect. I was putting them on the bench and jumping on them and doing all these tests and going, wait a minute, why have we not used these? Why hasn't anyone put these in the board? Then I figured out a way to get them in the board correctly, which is part of the patent, so I can't tell you that. But, to get them in the board correctly, and I got the board to come together and come apart and come together and come apart, and then I looked at it and said, what is the simplest way that we can hold these two sections together? And I took a piece of PVC from the hardware store, and I heated it up, and I put a helicoil insert in the back, and I dropped the threaded bolt in from the other side, and I cranked on it with the screwdriver. I went, this needs to live in the middle of this board somehow. 4 of these things need to live in this board. Right down the frickin' seam. So then I started drilling holes and inserting the plastic and putting the plastic in.
Was
and
it
then
like a
cutting it in
stormy
half.
night and like Frankenstein and like you're like, it's alive?
There was a lot of things in the basement. Remember when I was in the basement of my house? So I was in the basement of the house just constantly like thinking about it. And one of the weird things I always do is I have a strange idea is I drive around with it. I put it on the dashboard of my car and I just drive around and I hold it and I look at it and I think about it, and eventually I'll figure out, well, what needs to change about this. Something needs to change about this. So I was looking at the insert and I'm saying, I'm going to put the brass inserts, and some people might even have some of the first carbon compacts that have a brass insert. Like, you got to get rid of the brass insert. I got to thread the tube. I got to get a big piece of tube. I got to have the tube perfectly threaded. I want a fine thread so it doesn't back itself out. I want, to be a regular, like, what is it, a 5/16 stock, hex head, and have it perfectly machined. So then that's when I had to go to China, right? So I had to make one, send it to China. They sent back some samples, and I'd get these threaded tubes.
Why do you need to go to China for that? I'm just curious.
Because when I went to the machine shop here, it was hundreds of dollars for like a few of them. And even the carbon fiber tubes. I tried getting the carbon fiber tubes from some places out west, and they were just through the roof. So I had no choice in order to sell the board and make a profit. So I had to get the carbon fiber tubes from China, and I have to get those inserts from China as well. And so as it progressed, we've done a couple modifications to it, but that really did it was the ability to pull those two sections together tight with that threaded insert. And then there was always a little bit of a shift on the panels. So what I did for that was I made carbon fiber pieces, and one side has a nipple and one side has an indent. And that thing fits like
one
a
has
socket.
an innie and an outie.
Exactly. And it has to fit true tolerance, like really tight. So that was like a lot of work with like a local machine shop and getting the parts made, and we still make those in house. We don't get those made in China. We try to, and the accuracy isn't good enough.
Wow.
So we got those pieces, those skins as we call them. Those skins have to fit like perfectly together, and if all 3 parts of the recipe work, and there's all these tricks along the way as we're building the board, then you end up with something super strong, and it adds about 2 pounds to the construction.
So if you're using like EPS, like it's almost like a normal weighted board. Then,
right,
almost.
It's like a normal weighted poly board.
Yeah.
And then of course the original thing was, is it a piece of junk? Does it flex like a regular board? And like you always said, you want stiffness in between your on right in the center of the board,
absolutely.
and you want the nose and the tail to flex.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what it does.
Exactly.
It allows the midsection to be stiff, and it allows your nose and your tail to flex. So if anyone can try it, and if they want to say they feel it, if you sit on the board and you jump up and down, you'll feel the joint move a little bit.
Yeah.
But your whole board should be dissipating, moving. Like the whole board should be bending.
Do you think it dampens the board at all, or like feeling chop, right?
Right.
Like,
I would think so.
I
would think
like, keep it more
it.
Smooth over like rougher conditions. I imagine.
Because when we first started making EPS boards, we didn't know any better, and we were making them with a hard 2-pound foam, right?
Yeah.
And a thick stringer down the middle, and glassing the shit out of it. And those boards rode horrible.
Yeah.
And when anyone asks for, I want my epoxy board, I want it glassed really heavy, and I want a big stringer, I say, you really shouldn't do that. Because you're turning the thing into a really stiff board. And you're not going to get flex. You're not going to get drive. You're going to feel every piece of chop.
Exactly.
You might as well get yourself, an overseas pop out.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. That's a huge thing. Is like the what people don't think about or feel is the dampening of like the stringer and the fiberglass or the epoxy. Like that shit plays into. I remember riding the first Surf Techs, right?
Right.
They felt so weird because there was no flex, no give.
Exactly.
So you felt like every ripple of water that hit the bottom of the board, you'd feel it kind of like almost.
Exactly. So in fact, what you're saying, I'm sure the system does like dampen it a little bit. I mean, I can't tell anymore because that's all I ride. I ride the same thing the same boards that are carbon compacts every day because I'm trying to wait for it to fail under my feet before it does under someone else's. But no, we've had really good results. Like we've had like Mark Andrini sends us blanks.
Really?
And we make the carbon compact system and send them back. And that guy is so happy. His customers, he's done a few for his customers, but him personally, he travels around the world now riding that carbon compact in huge waves, and then sends us these really nice emails. Oh my God, man, it works so good. I've had such a great time.
That's validation because Andrini is like, considered like a god among shapers.
Right, exactly. And I didn't go after him. He saw it and went, You did it. You fixed the problem. You made a good travel board. Can I get one? And I said, sure. So we made him one, and then he sells them to his customers. We make a few here and there for his customers.
How can you take like a board that's already shaped and retrofit it with a carbon compact?
We can. Yep.
Interesting.
We can do it with a new board too, like a brand new board. But at that point, you might as well just have us make your board from scratch. But if you want to bring us a shaped blank, we could do that.
How much money do you think you've saved people in airline fees?
Oh, I've had like there's a guy in Spain that rides around with it on his backpack on his motorcycle and stuff, and he went all over Europe. And he was
I saw that Instagram story.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, I think I saved like $3,000 in all these little trips because the European flights, they have these little flights, and they charge them $200 or whatever each flight." So, and then we've done some pretty cool ones. There's a pilot from the Netherlands that just got a foil board, so he can put it in the front of the airplane with him because his foil will pack up. And his foil board now is like a 4 something that we made into these 2-foot pieces. Wow! And he has it in a little bag that he just brings it up into the front of the plane when he's flying, and it'll go wherever he wants. And he just takes his foil.
Now, have you done any boards now with different tail pieces to the front, like where you've switched out?
No, I haven't done
you
that.
tried
I know
that
Mayhofer has that with his removable.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, removable tail.
But
it's just the end of the tail.
Well, that's like the shapeshifter tails,
exactly,
too, which I don't think. I don't think it makes that big a difference because
Yeah.
it really depends on the outline of the board, not so
Right.
much of that very last tip.
Right. I don't think it makes a huge difference. I mean, I don't know. I probably don't surf good enough to notice that.
Yeah, well, we don't surf good enough waves on the regular to notice it, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we do have the wave pool we can start testing it in, right?
That's true. That is fun.
Have you talked to Scudin about about testing boards there?
Well, we gave him a bunch of boards when we went in
Nice.
October, and a bunch of like our hipster model, which is like the the mini Simmons. So he's got those there, but yeah, he said whatever we want to bring there, we could bring him some carbon compacts or whatever.
Has he approached you for guns with that, or have people with guns done the?
We've
carbon?
done a couple for like some guys that live on like the Big Island of Hawaii.
Yeah,
and we've shipped a few to Hawaii, but I don't know. I almost felt like those guys are putting themselves in such a predicament with those big guns that I'm like scared.
You're scared to see if it would hold, if someone's gonna do like a splits on like a gun, right where the compact cuts off.
I don't know. He's Cliff said he would do it, but I don't know.
Because I imagine that the carbon compact could actually be a performance enhancing piece to surfboards too. Like I imagine you could probably play around with thickness of those tubes if you wanted to,
right?
And had fuck all money to spend, I guess, on that. But
right.
You could affect the flex, change the flex up with different
right.
tubes, and change the torsional rigidity of it. Like imagine maybe like you do a softer, or a thinner tube in the middle, and then harder, more rigid on the tail, so you're getting a different type of flex characteristic. I wonder.
You definitely could. We've made 3-piece. I made a 3-piece longboard.
Wow.
Made a few 3-piece race boards and stuff. So there's 2 more flex, areas and whatnot. But the diameter of the tubes now, like 1 5/8. But on the stand-ups or like a bigger guy, one of those guns, we would do, a 2-inch tube.
Yeah.
So we beef up both tubes, and then the inner wall thickness of the tube.
Yeah.
Which is like 0.0475 or whatever. You can play with that to change the rigidity of the board. But
cool.
Usually I'm telling people like, look, if your board's going to break, it's not going to break in the system. Your board's going to break on either side of where the tubes end inside the board.
Right.
But we'll warranty the system.
Yeah.
But we haven't had any failure.
And those boards have stringers too. Is that correct?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We played around with no stringer, and then we do like the carbon tape, like you like vertical carbon tape and patterns and stuff. But then when really, if you go to like an 1/8-inch stringer, I feel like it's kind of it's just enough. Where you have some rigidity, so you're not going to snap the nose of your board off or the tail of your board off, but you also have flex, and that 1/8 stringer with the 2 carbon tubes in the middle, I think makes the perfect like recipe.
Yeah.
But again, like what we said about before, if someone says they want a 1/2-inch stringer down the thing, I'm going to say no. It doesn't make any. They look nice, but it's too much. I don't want you to come back and say this board rides too stiff.
Exactly. And let me ask you, how has it been during COVID selling surfboards? For some, it's been a boom, I've heard.
Yes. I think the surf industry has gone up like 300%.
The hard good.
The hard good.
The hard goods.
Not the soft.
Soft goods has been kind of
I don't know.
Whatever.
But board sales, I think overall
and
board
wetsuits.
sales and wetsuits are up 300%.
Wow.
But so when it first happened, I was like, oh my God, we were so scared, what's going to happen? And sure as shit, like, even during the economic downturn of 2008, people are still going to buy boards and they're still going to surf. So we knew from that period of time, right? And then when this happened, we're like, we kind of had the feeling more people are going to go outside and surf and paddle.
You're like, everyone's home, they're locked down, what can you do? Well, you could go to the beach. We're going to be busy.
We're going to be busy. And it was funny, over the summer, we had so many like stand-up repairs and stuff, and we had people coming in. The rack of stand-ups was gone, right? We sold out everything. People would come in, oh yeah, we really want to support local business and buy a stand-up here. I said, no, you don't. I said, you went to Dick's and they're all sold out of stand-ups. That's the only reason you're here. Because so is West Marine is sold out. Everyone's sold out. Like, who are you fooling?
I love that.
But then it gives you a good feeling of like self sustainability.
Yeah.
Like we're self-sustained. We're only reliant on our resin that gets made in North Carolina.
Yeah.